Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. Lakers fell 136 to 108. I would say that the South Bay Lakers lost 136 to 108 to the San Antonio Spurs tonight. Second loss in a row. LA dropped to 32 and 21. They are tied for fifth in the West with Minnesota, but they currently are 100 points ahead, so they are technically number 5. But Lakers play without Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Austin Reeves, Marcus Smart, and DeAndre Ayton. Their projected healthy starting group, their entire starting lineup was out tonight, and they got absolutely shellacked by the San Antonio Spurs. Spurs led by as many as 41 points. Victor Wembanyama had 40 points in just 26 minutes on just 20 shots. He had 37 in the first half, which was the most by a player this season in a first half, and the most by a player in a first half since Paolo Banchero back in October 2024. So you got to go back over a year and a half or so. So Wemby did whatever he wanted against the Lakers defense, and I'm not going to focus a lot on this game. I'm going to zoom through this. Just not a lot to take away, but there were a little bit of positives with the young guys. If we want to really stretch it, if we want to put on the purple and gold colored glasses. Speaking of that, I got a nightclub going on behind me. I got the new setup going. So we got the B logo and we got the top light back. So that's exciting, but otherwise not much to be excited about off of tonight. Shout out to the chat, though. You guys are all real ones. If you watch that game, or even if you didn't watch the game, you just tuned it in for the late night gang experience. Like I appreciate you, and you guys are real ones for putting up with what we saw tonight. So let's just get into it. Buha's big picture. It's like the only positive I can take away from this game is South Bay gets another opportunity. And what I mean by that is I refer to South Bay as like any of the Lakers' young players, any of the back end roster guys or two-way guys, even Kobe Buffkin, was just playing with South Bay. So it's a relative term here, but South Bay gets an opportunity. So the Lakers end up resting, and actually, so DeAndre Ayton's been dealing with this knee thing on and off. Austin, JJ said, was not going to play in the second night of a back-to-back. Luka's still out, and then Marcus actually hurt his ankle. That was something that we learned pregame that we did not know coming off of last night, that he had tweaked that ankle in the fourth quarter, played through it, but he woke up today actually feeling some pain with that. So that's something to monitor in terms of a potential absence with Marcus. Ankle injuries tend to linger at least beyond a couple days. But Lakers are shorthanded without their projected starting group, and all the young guys get some valuable reps and opportunity and minutes. So Kobe Buffkin gets the chance to start after signing the 15th roster spot. You got Drew Timme and Dalton, Adu Thero, Magnon, Bronny, Nick Smith. So the Lakers, they dusted the cobwebs off of all of the young players tonight. And I would say, overall, a mixed bag in terms of their performance. Quickly, I'm basically blending Buha's big picture with the notable performers section here. Kobe Buffkin, I like the start to his game, and I like the poise and the confidence that he plays with. There is something about him that some guys just have this chip on their shoulder visibly, where it looks like if you look at them the wrong way, you say the wrong thing, they're going to snap. And I kind of like that edge that Kobe has. He does it in a very chill manner, but he just is a guy who I would not want to upset or cross. He just has that vibe to him. But I thought a nice start from a scoring and playmaking perspective, and then really struggled the rest of the game. Finished with just 7 points on 2 for 10 shooting, 1 for 5 on threes, 2 for 2 at the free throw line, 2 rebounds, an assist, and a steal, but 3 turnovers. So 3 turnovers to just 1 assist. Certainly more of an on-ball scorer than playmaker at this stage of his career. Had, I think, some like decent defensive possessions, pressuring the ball and navigating ball screens, but ultimately like the Lakers were just shredded on that side of the floor. Then looking at the bench, Drew Timme continues to produce offensively with an array of hit a couple threes, got to the free throw line, his little bag of floaters and hook shots, just a skilled and really gifted offensive player. Grabbed 5 rebounds in just, no, excuse me, that was Dalton who grabbed 5 rebounds. Grabbed 2 rebounds in his 20 minutes. And, I thought it's tough to gauge the defense in some, some of these guys, right? Because Timme was playing primarily in garbage time. But yeah, I mean, it still continues to be a liability on that end overall. DK, I call him a garbage time all-star, and he delivered tonight. He did play some rotation minutes in the first half. I thought had a pretty rough shift, but then played better in the second half, finished with 9 points, 5 rebounds, 4 for 8 shooting. Bronny, to me, was the guy who really stood out tonight in a major way. 12 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 for 10 shooting, 2 for 2 on threes. Had a block, had an incredible block there, a couple turnovers. But I think Bronny, it's easy to compare Kobe Buffkin and Nick Smith Jr. and Bronny. And I think what we've seen from Kobe in the G League, what we've seen from Nick Smith with the parent team, for a couple games this season, I think those guys are ahead of Bronny in terms of their bag, in terms of their ability to get hot and score a certain amount of points, that they're more natural scorers. But Bronny's passing, that is where I think he differs and differentiates himself from those two guys. Is Bronny just has this feel for the game, and he's always looking to make the extra pass, looking to get guys open, looking to create opportunities, whether it's pocket passes, driving kick, just swinging the ball. So I thought some really nice passing from Bronny tonight, in addition to efficient shooting, going 5 for 10, hitting both of his threes, and playing with more confidence and assertiveness offensively. So I feel like we hadn't seen this as much from him lately in some of his garbage time shifts, and this I think continues his overall progression, looking at the beginning of his rookie year to where he's at right now. And then we got some Nick Smith. I thought was okay in 6 points, 3 for 8 shooting. I think my one thing with him is I feel like sometimes he plays with tunnel vision, and you could tell some possessions he's looking to get his own shot, and it's one thing. It bothers me with Dalton too, but with Dalton, at least he's out there to score, and the Lakers are sometimes running him off of pin downs or certain actions to get him with an advantage, get him going downhill, and then he attacks in the mid range. With Nick Smith, it's there's just possessions where he's the primary ball handler a lot of the time when he's out there. So it's if it's a possession where he just calls his own number and goes and takes a contested mid-range jumper and no one else touches the ball on that possession, I just don't really love those possessions from him. And then also comparing him to Buffkin and even Bronny, I think those guys are just ahead of him defensively. So I feel like Nick Smith is almost becoming a little bit of the odd man out here. But again, this is one reference point for us to add to the ledger for each of these players. Then Chris Magnon and Adu Thiro both played. Magnon had not played in months. Adu Thiro had not played since December 30th and had been out, with the setback with his knee. And I thought both players brought a level of motor and defensive intensity and ferocity that the Lakers, outside of Vando and Smart, just don't have very often. So it was nice to see Adu had that one possession where he I forgot who missed the free throw, but he battles Bismack Biyombo, gets the tie up and the jump ball. Chris Magnon out there playing passing lanes and pressuring full court, pressuring at half court, like he's just a ball hawk, and I think a solid multi-positional defender. Really, the thing with both guys is just like they're so incredibly raw. Like both guys make Vando look like Luka offensively, so that's where they both have to improve in that regard. Of just I don't think either of them has a discernible offensive skill other than with a do, like he could jump out the gym. So we saw the lob connection with Bronny, incredible pass from Bronny, incredible finish from Adu, gets the and one in transition. But you see the spirit with Adu, and I just like the vibe and like the way that he plays, and he plays with a certain joy that I think is infectious. And then Chris Magnon is just a dog defensively. So nothing really to write home about in terms of their offensive performances and even their overall stat lines. They both played a majority of the fourth, but I think the unquantifiable part was like the defense, and that was to me, really stood out. So I just mentioned most of the notable performers. I will transition into officially the notable performers section. Luke Kennard led the team with 14 points and 5 assists. 5 of 8 shooting, 1 for 3 on threes. I think we saw some of his ball handling and playmaking chops tonight with him playing more of an on-ball role. We also saw them attack him a lot defensively. So I think from an offensive perspective, it clearly was the most he's been involved and the most he's had to handle the ball. I also think we saw, in comparison to playing against Fox and Castle and Vassell, and this is going to be a tough matchup for him defensively in the future when these two teams meet, or if these two teams meet. I believe this is the final matchup of the regular season between them. But if they meet again in the playoffs, like Kennard is going to have his hands full, and really the Lakers' entire backcourt will, because I just think this is a bad backcourt matchup for them. Then Jackson, I thought, had some nice moments offensively, finished with 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Could do nothing against Wemby. Jackson hit a second three of the season. Could do absolutely nothing against Wemby. Lakers eventually had to switch Rui and Vando on to him, which I think is the better approach in general. But also they were switching, like there was a play where Kennard switched on to Wemby, and even Stu Lance called it out on the broadcast of like, why is Luke Kennard guarding, like why are they switching him on to Wemby? And Wemby, I believe, got a dunk or a layup off that. So it's like, that's where Lakers got to be careful with their switching. Jake LaRavia fouled out in 18 minutes, nearly fouled out in the first half, had 5 fouls deep in, picked up his 5th foul right before halftime, fouled out 4 minutes into the third quarter. 10 points, I thought, had, hit a couple threes. He got the 3-point regression in the wrong game. The Lakers needed this in a different game from him, but he had a rough night with the foul trouble. And then Rui, 6 points, 3 for 12 shooting, 0 for 3 on threes. I would say this kind of showed some of his shot creation limitations. Rui's certainly more of a finisher than a creator or self-starter in that regard, but just a poor shooting night for him. Maxi Kleba also nearly fouled out, had 4 fouls in 13 minutes and got lit up by Wemby. Vando, 6 points, hit a corner 3. I think that's basically everybody. And then stat of the night, I'm going with Wemby's 40 points in 26 minutes, including 37 in the first half. Takeaway number 1 is injury updates from JJ on all of the notable parties here. So Luka is progressing well, and he is day-to-day. It sounds like there's a chance he could play Thursday against Dallas. AR was held out just because it was a back-to-back, and JJ said they didn't want to play him coming off of the calf injury. LeBron dealing with the sciatica, and just, I think once Austin and Luka were going to be out, it didn't really make sense to play LeBron. But JJ referenced just like the injuries that he's been dealing with, including going back to the beginning of the season. Marcus actually got hurt, apparently, in the OKC game. We'll see if he's able to play against Dallas. That would be an unfortunate blow for the Lakers to get Luka back against Dallas, but then potentially lose Marcus. So JJ said that the Marcus one was actually not like them resting him. It was because his ankle actually hurts. And then DA has been dealing with this on and off again, knee injury or knee soreness, swelling. And the Lakers kept him out. He was questionable going into the game. And then Adu made his return and had been practicing with South Bay going into this. Takeaway number 2, we're only doing 2 takeaways because, again, there's really not much to take away. Just a quick standings watch off of tonight. So Lakers lose to the Spurs. Rockets beat the Clippers, and the Suns beat the Mavericks. So current West standings, OKC is number 1. San Antonio is quietly catching up to them. They're only 3.5 games back, including 3 back in the loss column. So that could end up being a close race down the stretch of the regular season. Houston is now 3rd in the West. They've jumped Denver. Technically, they're tied, but Houston has 1 fewer loss, is percentage points ahead. Then the Lakers are now a game and a half back of both Houston and Denver. So LA is at the 5 spot. They are tied with Minnesota, but percentage points ahead of them because they have 1 fewer loss than Minnesota. Then you have Phoenix a half game back of both LA and Minnesota. So right now, like 3 through 7 is separated by 2 games. Houston and Denver, I think ultimately will probably distance themselves, and that will be the top 4 in some order. We'll see. But the Lakers are jostling with Minnesota and Phoenix, as they have been for the last several weeks. And I think the Lakers should be the favorite to probably lock in the 5 seed longer term. But Minnesota and Phoenix are not going away. The Lakers are not getting any breathing room. And then Houston and Denver continue to win in general and keep the little distance that they have ahead of the Lakers. So it's been a minute since we did a standings watch, but that's about it, right? Like I don't know what else to take away or talk about. I guess the only notable thing, if you really want to make this takeaway number 3, JJ said the Lakers suck at defense after the game and was pretty upset with their game plan execution. And I would agree. I actually think like you can make a point that, without the big 3, of course, the Lakers are much worse offensively. And there is an element of good offense, great offense can lead to better defense just because you're able to set your defense, get back. And I think if the big 3 plays, this is a much closer game, potentially an actual close game. But I also, no Marcus, so that affects the defense. DA played well against Wemby earlier in the season. So I don't think played as well the last couple of matchups, but, or I think Wemby missed one of them, but the one in December, he didn't play as I'm jumbling up some of the matchups, but I also think like the Lakers were in a position to probably defend better than they did tonight. And I think like, yes, they were shorthanded. Yes, they should have lost this game second night of a back-to-back. There are a million excuses for why, like schedule loss, all these things, totally get it. But I also thought their defense was absolutely terrible tonight. And even if they had their stars, if the rest of the group was defending the way that they defended, I think it would have been a long night for the Lakers, regardless of who was available, because those guys also come with some defensive concerns or limitations, and could have been targeted or whatever. So with all that said, let's get into the Q&A though. I think this was my shortest breakdown of the season. We made it under 19 minutes. First one here from Quang. Hope I didn't butcher that too bad. Thank you for the super chat. Yo, been watching Lakers YouTube accounts forever. Love your channel and will always support. Was at the game tonight. Saw Dave, Dan, etc. Where do you sit at games? I sit in section 108 now. So I used to sit in 114. Sometimes they'll still put me there, but I sit in 108, which is on the opposite end. Basically, like same equivalent section, but it's on. They put me on the visiting side section now. But I actually kind of like the seats a little bit better, so I don't mind it. But especially because when I do sit in 114, they put me more in the back of 114. So I sit more now in 108, but it does fluctuate every game. But next time you're at a game, hit me up on IG. I know there's been a couple instances in which people have, and I haven't gotten back to them. I always apologize, but I try to check that and then meet up with people. Gary Singh, thank you for the super chat. Bigger picture, playoff game. What's Lakers closing lineup? AR, Luka, Braun, Smart, fit. I think that's the problem. Can't have 2 defensive liabilities with AR and Luka. I wonder if it's Jake or Vando, to be honest. It could also just be Rui. I don't love closing with Luka, Braun, and Rui. You guys know my thoughts about the limitations of that trio, and especially in a small ball group where if you're closing with, let's just say those 5 guys, Luka, Braun, and Rui are your front court to a degree, right? Like you're probably using Smart as a point of attack guy, or as a wing stopper, you're using Austin as the secondary backcourt guy, and then Luka, Braun, and Rui. Two of those guys are helpers. One of those guys is the rim protector. I just don't really like that backline defense. And I think if the Lakers are in a situation where they have to make multiple efforts, they're going to be giving up offensive rebounds. They're going to be giving up layups. It's just, back cuts. I just don't really like that backline defensively. So I think you probably need Vando in there or Jake at a minimum. So, I mean, if you're asking me, I think the group I would probably feel the most comfortable with would be like the big three plus Smart and Jake. But I understand, like, there's counterpoints to I think Smart has earned like the fourth spot. I think I've been talked about it. He's probably their fourth best player up to this point in the season. He's been shooting 40% on threes for the past 5 weeks. And I think has really settled into a certain role with the group. But I think that fifth spot, you could talk me into Jake, you could talk me into Rui, you could talk me into Vando. Notice I did not mention a big. I guess if I had to go with a big, I'd probably go Jackson. I would not go with DA. I've not liked what I've seen from him in the bigger matchups this season. Maxey, I just think had the two like great games, and then I thought I'd a bit of a kind of meh shift last game. Tonight was fine, but I just, he's not been the same player these last couple games, and I didn't necessarily expect him to be, but I just think the Lakers probably are better off going small, and like maybe it's Vando. Maybe Vando is the guy, though that comes with offensive complications. So they're in a tough spot. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what you do with that. Zach Awan, thank you for the super chat. Ideal offseason plan: sign AR to $40 million deal. Watson to 30, Kessler to 25, Smart to 11, Luke to 5, Hayes to 5, Maxey to minimum. Trade DK or DA, DK, and 2 firsts for Herb. Roster: Luka, AR, Herb, Watson, Kessler, Smart, Luke, Vando, Jake, Hayes, Bronny, Kobe, Adu, Maxey. All right, let me replay that. Love the starting group. This is like you're speaking my language here with this starting group. Luka, AR, Herb, Watson, Kessler. I love that front court. I absolutely love that front court. Then bench: Smart, Luke, Vando, Jake, Hayes, Bronny, Kobe, Adu, Maxey. I like this group a lot more. I do have some questions 11 to 14 once you get past the top 10, just because I outside of like Maxey, I guess, has shown us a little bit. I still don't fully trust Maxey because he'll have a good game or two or even 3 and then look more his age, and that's totally understandable based on his injuries, his age, all that stuff. And then Bronny, Kobe, and Adu, I just don't know. Like, I mean, we'll see where they're at going into next season, but I don't think any guy is like a no to be on the roster for next season. Yeah, I mean, I would say the one thing here I would have to really go through, and I'm going to have Eric Pincus on soon to talk through some of the cap stuff. Already Watson and Kessler at 55 is like you're kind of pushing it, and then if you're adding 3 to Smart, and then I guess Luke's taking a pay cut, Jackson's getting a bump. I think this is like semi-realistic. It might be a little high on the money side overall, so that they would have to navigate that, but it's realistic in terms of like feasible to pull off. Now, can they trade for Herb? Can they land Watson and Kessler? I'm skeptical that they could land both of those. I know you're laying out the ideal. I would agree with you. Like, this is like the pie in the sky ideal offseason. I just think, I don't know if the Lakers would give up 2 firsts for Herb. I think my operating assumption would be that's a little bit too rich for their blood. Although again, based on the market, they just might have to be aggressive and slightly overpay to actually add people. If like when you're in a situation where you kind of have to do something and there's a certain level of desperation, it's either like you trade for Herb or you don't trade for Herb, and now you're starting Marcus Smart or Jake LaRavia again, right? Like I do think you need to upgrade that spot. I also see here you have Rui walking and LA not re-signing him. I think 5 for Luke is fair. 5 for Jackson is fair. 11 for Smart is fair. I think these are all like fair deals. I just I think it depends on there's a lot of cap gymnastics that have to play out that for LA to even get to the 55 to comfortably add Watson and Kessler. I would note, I think Kessler is going to get more. I think Kessler is going to be around 30. Watson might actually, I think you might be able to flip Watson and Kessler depending on how the rest of the season goes for Watson. But in general, I do expect like the collective of those two to be in that like $55-60 million range. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to land both. I think that's going to be really difficult. You probably would have to sign and trade and send out a pick or something to at least one of those teams to facilitate that, I think realistically. But I'm with you in terms of ideal. I think this is pretty much as close to a realistic idea, or as close to an ideal offseason for me. How realistic it is, I think it's tough to land 2 restricted free agents. I think the Lakers would be fortunate to land one of them. But I think if they offered 2 firsts for Herb, they get in the conversation, and I think New Orleans would be open to that. Justin, thank you for the super chat. Get rid of back-to-backs. That wasn't an NBA game. I'm with you. I've even thought about this, and I've talked about this with people in the league. Like, I just feel like the league should, even if you push the start of the season, like you add, I don't know, 2 weeks on both sides in terms of like start. So what, media day is usually like end of October. It's like the final, I mean, end of September. It's usually the final Monday of September is media day. And that's when training camp officially starts. I would push that up like 2 weeks, and then I would push the finals back. I'd basically push everything in the NBA calendar for the start of the season 2 weeks earlier, and everything at the end of the season 2 weeks later. And if you added a month to the collective season, and again, so now let's say media day is like mid-September, you're starting the regular season in early to mid, we'll say like maybe the second week of October, and then you're ending like the finals, game 7 is like end of June, maybe like the final few days of June. And then free agency maybe starts, again, like a couple of weeks later. So maybe July 15th instead of July 1st. And then summer league's also a little bit pushed back. Not ideal to add 2 weeks on both sides of it, but, or whatever, week and a half, whatever makes it work. But like, I really think back-to-backs should be eliminated, or it should be like 4 back-to-backs, 5 back-to-backs, like a very small number. But if you had to expand the schedule a little bit and go a little bit into college football and the NFL more on the front end, and then, go back more into the baseball season and this, preparing for the football season on the back end, I think so be it. You just kind of have to do that because, to your point, we're just seeing too much with the tanking phenomenon going on right now, and just the disaster that has been for so many teams. And then you add in the back-to-back, and it's like the Lakers just lost the game tonight that who knows what happens if they act, if it's not a back-to-back. Let's say the Lakers don't have the Thursday game against Dallas, and the Thursday game is instead replaced with this one, or they're just playing tomorrow, like basically the rest of the league is. That's a big game for LA, and it's a big measuring stick. And like, they're probably like Luka's probably returning. Austin's able to play. LeBron plays. I don't know about Marcus. DA probably plays. And it's closer to a full strength battle, and you get a really good game on a Wednesday night. Instead, you get the second night of a back-to-back for LA. San Antonio's rested, and you see what ends up happening tonight. So I'm with you. I think back-to-back should just be eliminated entirely, but I don't know if that's feasible with all the scheduling that goes into the NBA schedule. And you got to think about it. It's like each arena, and each home team and their arena, and just all the things that I just think about. Even Crypto.com arena, it's like how many concerts are going on, or when it's a Kings game or a Sparks game, or just so many different things that are happening at that arena, and all the scheduling that goes into it. Like, I understand there are some limitations there, and sometimes you just have to have a back-to-back, and there are certain, like, they have to have the Grammy road trip, right? That's just baked into the Lakers schedule. But it feels like it's a missed opportunity on the league side, and they should be looking for ways to de-incentivize tanking and to limit back-to-backs and people resting. And a big thing would just be get rid of them entirely, but if not, at least reduce them to like a few a season, and maybe like once a month. Maybe like once a month you have a back-to-back. That's it. I'm cooler with that, but far too many. Jazz Singh, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Goat, no restricted free agency. I know restricted free agency is hard, but I don't mind overpaying for Kessler. He's a great fit and only good big actually available. Is it realistic to get him? I don't mind overpaying for Kessler either. I'm in the same boat as you. I think Kessler is one of the most underrated bigs in the league. And clearly Utah, despite keeping him a bubble wrap for much of the last few years, as they've tried to tank games and improve their draft position, they are very high on him. And the asking price has been through the moon for Kessler. So I think if the Lakers go into the 30s, it gets interesting and it hits on a pressure point. I do think if they went up to like 35, Utah would really think strongly about if they'd want to pay that, just because you'd be tying up so much money into your front court with Kessler, Markkanen, and Triple J. I think that would get them to consider potentially moving on, or maybe the Lakers offer, like, I think a compromise could just be, I don't know, 30 million plus like a first round pick or something, right? And you do a sign and trade, and then you are hard capped at the first apron, but the Lakers are sort of hard capped at the first apron anyway. They don't really like going over the first apron for a variety of reasons. Maybe that'll change under Mark Walter, and maybe he'll be more aggressive with that, but there are actual penalties to going past the first apron that, and then if you do a sign and trade, you're hard capped there. You can't go over it under any circumstances. So I think there's different ways it could play out, right? Like you could just overpay slightly and Utah just like decides not to match. You could try to overpay and Utah decides to match, but they take their time. So your cap space is held up for a little bit there. Or you could find some middle ground of like, hey, we really want Kessler. This is the number we want him at. And if it's maybe a number, like, I don't know, if 35 is the breaking point, maybe you offer 32, throw in a pick, sign and trade over here, creates a trade exception for Utah, or maybe you send a player out to Utah and then, and that also still creates a trade exception, and then they get a pick out of it or something. But I think I would say it's semi-realistic to get him. I don't think they're going to get any. I don't think they're going to get multiple restricted free agents. It's just not really how restricted free agency works. I think a restricted free agent is gettable if I was ranking them. I think there's like a big three in restricted free agency right now. I think Tari Eason 1, Peyton Watson 2, Walker Kessler 3 in order of how gettable they are. So not in order of how I'd want them. I'd actually want them in the inverse. I'd want Kessler first, Watson second, Tari Eason third. But in terms of how gettable they are, I think it's Eason 1, Watson 2, Kessler 3. By the way, probably going to go about an hour or so tonight. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter. Second night of a back-to-back, doing Spectrum tomorrow. And we just don't have a lot to talk about tonight coming off of this game. Lego Team Builder, Jovan, can you tell us your thoughts on the Hayes lawsuit with the Wizards mascot? It's an unfortunate situation for everybody. I think Jackson has to have better judgment in that situation. And I know he said that his foot was stepped on, but I just think he's at times showed a lack of judgment, and I'm going to just leave that statement where it belongs. But yeah, I mean, he even some of like his texts and stuff, like it seems like he can really hold on to things in a way that's like detrimental, that he needs to learn to like let it go and like not try to get say his side or like kind of get even with the person that upset him. So, I mean, this is a delicate situation in terms of like the lawsuit. I mean, technically I think there's a case. I think in these situations, typically, you don't sue or whatever, but you'll probably get some money out of it. And he's got it. He's got a point, dude. Trip/pushed him, whatever. So, yeah. Chat's going into some of the things that I'm not going to get into, but noted. And fair. King Carter, hey Jovan, I saw your pod with Cam. It felt like he was excusing the front office too much. Patience is overrated to me. Luka's almost 27, not 19. I don't think the job's hard. I can do better. I also think, to your point, and I wish I thought of this in the moment when he was bringing up the Kobe thing. I guess Kobe was a little bit younger than Luka too, because he brought up comparing 04 with Kobe to, I guess this. I think you'd have to compare it to 2025 with Luka. I don't think you'd be able to compare it to like now with Luka. So if you're saying like that was like the first summer with Luka and this is like the first season and this would be equivalent to 04-05 season, Kobe was 25. He turned 26 in August 2004. So yeah, I guess going into the 04-05 season, he had just turned 26. Luka, there's actually an age parallel there, but I just, Andy's my guy, so I'm not going at Andy at all. To be clear, I just think in general, you can't really apply, like you can't go back to 20 years ago and multiple CBAs ago and say like this is how you build a team or a roster, just because I think, you could go back to like the 90s with Michael Jordan and how they built the Bulls, and you could find or go back to the 80s, and like every era has their style of roster building and sort of, and even going back to, that the Kobe Powell Lakers, like they built the infrastructure and needed like one more big move, right? And they were able to pull off the Powell trade. But I would also argue like they had a lot of big pieces in place already at that time, where like Bynum was on the rise. LO was LO and one of the more underrated supporting cast role player guys in the league. They had brought Derek Fisher back, and those teams had, remember the bench mob, like Farmar and Vujicic and Shannon Brown and Luke Walton and Josh Powell. And like, I know I'm like kind of combining multiple years here, but they had depth and they needed like one more piece, and they somehow were able to flip Kwame Brown for Pau Gasol. I don't think that's a sustainable build here for the Lakers, because I don't think there's a Pau Gasol out there for them necessarily. And I also just think they're more pieces away than that group was from actually contending. So to your point, yeah, like Luka's about to be 27 and he's about to be entering his prime. The Lakers need to start going for it. The point I made on the pod, I stand by. If we're looking at the summer of 2027 and the Lakers have 2 first-round exits and maybe like a second-round exit with Luka, I think that's a failure on the organization's part to like the start of the Luka era. If you are not putting the right pieces around Luka, that's on you. That's not on him. Like assuming Luka delivers as he has so far as a Laker, if they lose in the first round this year, it has way more to do with the roster than it does with Luka. If they make like a second round jump maybe next year, that's because they put all their eggs in the 2026 basket and didn't deliver. Like I think at some point there has to be some accountability with the roster and just I would say how mismanaged it's been for a half decade now. JG time. Lakers season over? No, the Lakers season is not over. But I actually think coming off the OKC game, I said it. I feel like they're trending in the right direction lately. I'm not gonna yes, this technically drops them to 8-5 over their past 13 instead of 8-4 over their past 12. But they've been borderline top 10 both sides of the ball over this stretch here, and this is obviously going to knock them down. They had a 103 offensive rating, 130 defensive rating tonight. It's not going to help any of their numbers, but this game aside, they've been trending in the right direction. Final hump is beating the best teams having some statement wins down the stretch here, but not, far from over. Confused. Robert Ball says, lame tonight. Jovan, excuses are for losers. I'm out of here. I'm confused what I was making excuses about. I don't think I've made any excuses. Sarah, Jovan, you see Marcus as a long-term piece for the Lakers, or is he more of a stopgap? I think he's more of a stopgap, but he can be like an intermediate stopgap. So I guess it depends like what your definition of long-term is. For me, looking at Marcus, less than a month away from turning 32, and he was drafted in 2014. So this is his 12th season. I mean, I could see Marcus being an effective role player for another few years. Now, I think based on like his age and his wear and tear and just the accumulation of injuries that he has, I don't know how confident I'd be in his ability to contribute as like a top 8 guy, maybe beyond 2028. So maybe he's got like 2 more years left as a high level role player, and then there'll be some tail off and maybe he becomes more of like a fringe role player. But a lot of what he does is like not, I mean, his athleticism has certainly declined. He's the speed and just, he's not the same athlete that he was earlier in his career, but he kind of reminds me of Ron Artest in some ways. And like he's like a small Ron Artest. Like they've got very similar builds, and he's got the strong frame and the long arms and like just such a technically sound defender, and just has this, he sees red all the time, right? And that's what, part of what makes Marcus so special. He's just a beast. And I think, I guess depending on, like, if I say 2 years, is that a stopgap or is that a long-term piece? I lean more stopgap, but he could, Luka has wanted to play with Marcus going back to the Dallas days. I think those two have a good relationship. Luka obviously recruited him to come to LA. So I could see it. I could see him being a Laker for a few years, but in terms of like his role as like a fringe starter / like bench player, I think that's more of like probably 2 more years, I would say, if he ends up staying. Julian, thank you for this question here. Hi, Jovan. Think they're better off signing an athletic wing like Watson or Eason and re-signing AR than adding depth pieces instead of going all in for Giannis. I'm in agreement. I think so. I would rank, like, for me, my offseason outcomes would be some form of, like, number one for me would be some form of similar to the super chat from Zach Wan, like some form of trading and or signing restricted free agents. I think if you look at the restricted free agents versus the unrestricted free agents, I'd much rather have the restricted free agents than the unrestricted free agents. Obviously, they're more difficult to attain, and you're either going to have to overpay in the form of actual salary or overpay in terms of sending out picks to that team to acquire them in a sign and trade. But I'd rather do that or trade for some stuff like OKC, Hartenstein or Dort becomes available. Maybe one of those guys you could get for like a first round pick or something. I'd rather go that path and then build out the roster with some of your other cap space or some of your other assets and build out the roster that way than go all in on Giannis and have a really tough build in terms of just having all of your salary concentrated basically, or like 75% of your salary concentrated to Luka, Giannis, and Austin, and then you'll get like one exception player and the rest is all vet minimums. I have some concern with that roster build. I would put it ahead of just running it back though if the Lakers strike, because this is in play here of like, if they don't land Kessler or Watson or Eason and Giannis stays put or goes somewhere else, all of a sudden you're like, are you now overpaying Mitchell Robinson to be starting center, and I don't even love that fit with Luka. I frankly think he's more of a backup. That's kind of what New York. I mean, I know he's been in and out of the starting group, but I think New York has sort of settled on he's like a 20-minute a night backup just due to the injuries he's dealt with. And like if you look at his finishing numbers or like his dunking numbers, he's just not been the same player the last 4 years. So, I mean, that's, I guess, an option. But you go through unrestricted free agency, there's just not a lot out there. And I would say the Lakers kicking the can down the road and rolling it over into next season and being like, well, we tried to get some of these guys, we couldn't get them, but like, let's run it back with DA. Let's run it back with Rui. Let's run it back like same group. Maybe there's like a one exception guy you add. That version, I would rather have the honest version. So I would rank it as like some form of restricted free agents and or trading for starters. Number 1. Number 2 would be honest. Number 3 would be the kicking the can down the road, running it back with the same group and selling the fan base on future hope. That's a distant third for me. You got to do something. Keon Park says, you mean Meta World Peace? Yes, Meta World Peace. I still call him Ron Artest. Kane Carter asks, where do you think players who struggle to shoot go wrong in their training methods in terms of translating to games, even if they can get hot in open gyms like Vando? He needs to float it. I think first and foremost, it's mental. And that's the biggest part of it, right? Because the form, like to your point, you see Vando shoot pregame at the game. You see Vando shoot in practice. He's cashing them, right? Like he's making them, and he's not making them at the level that Luke Kennard is. He's not making them at the level that Luka or Austin is, right? He's not making them at the level that Rui is, but he's making them at a decent level, and that just does not translate consistently to the game. So I think it's mental first and foremost, but there's a lot of factors that go into it in terms of shot mechanics, where some players like need to catch the ball in a certain spot. Or like you'll see that the best shooters can catch the ball under any circumstances, high, low, in their chest, left side, right side, and they find their shooting pocket and they're able to release it quickly and make it. Some guys are very much, and I think Vando's is sort of this guy where he needs like a lot of time, he needs to be open, and he needs to catch it in a certain rhythm and then go into his jumper. And a lot of times you could even tell with the way that he's rising for the shot if it's going to go in or not. If he's got the legs or just sort of his form or whatnot. So I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I think the biggest thing is ultimately mental. I also think making sure you are training and shooting at game speed, because sometimes you do watch some guys go through their shooting and it's very much like they're kind of jogging, they're going through the motions, and it's not really game speed, right? And this is something JJ's talked about before with his training. And I think the very best shooters do this. It's like they're going to run into the shot and they're going to be making sure they're out of breath and learning how to shoot out of breath, right? And that's almost a skill unto itself of everyone can shoot well in the beginning of the game when you got your stamina. What about when you're in the fourth quarter, your legs are tired and you're out of breath? And like, that's something that also, you can work on and translate better into games. So I don't want to pick on Vando in particular. I know you asked specifically about him, but I would say I think it's, for all these guys, I think it's mental. And there's also an added element of Luka passing you the ball, LeBron passing you the ball, I think to a lesser degree, Austin passing you the ball. Like there's some added weight with that, right? Especially with some of these passes that Luka and LeBron make. They're throwing these no looks, they're throwing these bullets, the crowd's going and gasping, and then you miss the shot, right? And we saw the clips that went viral about Jake during the OKC game, where first two clips, the bench is standing up in anticipation, and then he misses it, and then the third one they don't even stand up, and that stuff just kind of weighs on you a little bit. So I think the biggest component of all is mental. Hans De Leon asks, how about Highsmith? I haven't heard anything specifically on Highsmith other than it just seems like the Lakers were not comfortable with where he's at physically right now. So we'll see if he ends up signing elsewhere and how he potentially looks. But I was on board with Highsmith. I would have, if he was physically ready, I would have signed him over Bufkin. But I like Highsmith. Paul, thank you for the question here. Jovan, how's the food they give you during the game? It's solid. I would say the Crypto.com food has improved over the last couple of years. I know they made a concerted effort to improve the quality of the food. Arena to arena, it varies. I've talked about like Detroit is Little Caesars Arena. It's by far the best in the league, in my opinion, though Utah is on the rise and it is giving them a run for their money. But well, I would say Little Caesars is the best if you like unhealthy food, because they basically have buffet style, unlimited pizza, unlimited breadsticks, unlimited burgers, fried chicken. It's like, anything you could think of, they have there, unlimited. And all the media food is unlimited, but they have just like tons and tons of options and food. Then there's some places like, not to pick on them, but Charlotte, you get a food voucher. So it's a minor, this is a first world problem, minor inconvenience, but like there's no like dedicated media area to eat, which most arenas have. This is, you got to go into the concourse and actually, spend the voucher on a food, and then just kind of limited options within that. It's not anywhere in the arena. It's like only a couple spots. And then they don't have like, even the arenas who do that, because there are a few who make you go out to the concourse, they at least have like water and like some bit like coffee and maybe a soda machine or something for you. That's not the case in Charlotte. Charlotte, they have nothing for you. Maybe they have a soda machine now, but they definitely don't have water. And I've talked about that before, that I think that's crazy that like every arena should have at least water bottles for you. So in general, I would say the food is like solid. I mean, it's media food, so it's going to be, I'm trying to think of, it's probably like airport quality food, I guess, if that makes sense. But it's solid. I would say at Crypto.com, they have great ice cream. That's what they're known for. The ice cream machine is one of the best in the league. Silver asks, do I think defense wins championships? Yes, I do. I think that actually offense is more important than defense. And I think we've seen that more recently. In this way, if you told me, give me a team that is third in offense and like 12th in defense, or give me a team that is third in defense or 12th in offense, I would rather have the team that's third in offense and 12th in defense. Now, the 2020 Lakers are actually the exact opposite of that, right? Where they were that top defensive team that was always hovering around the top 10. So there are some exceptions, but most of the recent champions have been top 5 in offense. And if there's like a little bit of shake, like I think about like Denver in 2023, elite offense, kind of shaky defense, but they're able to get by with the offense. Boston and OKC the last couple of years have been elite on both sides. Like, of course you want to be top 5 in both, top 3 in both, but that's hard to do. Going back, trying to think about like the Bucks and the Warriors. I don't know. You need to be good in both. I think ideally top 10 in both, but I think offense is like slightly a little bit more reliable in a way, as counterintuitive as that might sound, just because you're going to have some nights where your opponent gets hot and like you can't really control that. And look, you might have some nights where you go cold, but I think if you are a high level executing offense, you can, like, I think you even kind of see it in some of the standings right now, where like the top 10 offenses are, I think there's a stronger correlation there between who's the best teams in the league right now, or like who's playing the best. Now, some of those teams are also on the top 10 defense list, so they're both there. But I think there's a lot of teams that are like good defensively that can't score, that are slightly beatable, whereas like the teams that are great offensively but can't really defend as well, I think they're a little bit tougher to beat. But that's just my take on that. Outer Space Mitch, Jovan, if you had to give an analysis of yourself as a basketball player, what would that be? Always been interested to know. So what's funny is I was just thinking about this today. I would compare myself to Andrew Bogut. I've made that comparison before, and like specifically probably Warriors Andrew Bogut, but not the later Warrior. Like I will say like 2013 2015 to 2016 Andrew Bogut, I would say, to get more specific. My game has changed. Like I've always been a big man, but in high school and coming up, I was more of like low post, hook shots, drop steps, and like a little bit of touch. I would say in my post high school, college career, I've shifted far more into being a stretch big and more of a shooter. And it's funny because I didn't play basketball for a while pretty much after high school, like did not like my coach and had a really negative experience with like playing basketball and just, was in love with covering it and doing all this. So I didn't play basketball for like probably 5-6 years after high school. And then all of a sudden I started playing again and I just randomly became like a much better shooter. I don't really know why, but like, much better shooter now than I was in high school. But I would say in general, I was more of a defensive, like, I think my career high in blocks was 6 in a game, on varsity. So I was definitely more of like a enforcer, intimidator, defender type. I've talked about this before. I've been ejected multiple times. I'm a very chill guy, as I think you guys can tell by those who've been listening to me for a while. But my alter ego on the court, it's kind of like that's where I understand Luka to a degree, and I don't know if it's like the Slavic Balkan side for both of us, but when I get on the basketball court, I'm like, I'm a dirty person. I'm a bad person. I want to hurt you. I want to injure you. I don't care. I just this like other like beast side of me comes out, the savage side of me comes out where I'm like, I just want to do anything to win a game. And if I see you're going up for a layup, I'm going to hit you with a hard foul. Now that's toned down because in like men's leagues and pickup games, if you do that, you're going to get in a fight. And like, I've learned to tone that down, but in high school, I didn't care. So I'd foul out, I'd get ejected, I'd get flagrants, I'd get into fights. It was fun. But what's funny is I was actually watching Maxi and I was like, I might be closer to Maxi now, I guess, like in my game, gone from Bogut to Maxi, but I'm sort of still like that defensive big who can, I guess now like stretch the floor a bit. Anul, thank you for the super chat. How much of the roster is retained for next season? Good question. I think more than people want, to be completely honest. But now that the Lakers have 15 guys, I will say, quickly going through the roster here, 1, 2. I'll probably say 7 guys tentatively, but there's so many wild cards here, right? Because I think Rui, especially if you're not getting one of those restricted free agents or there isn't a clear upgrade on the trade market, Rui makes a lot of sense to keep. He might even make sense to keep even if you add one of those guys, but I think he makes a lot more sense to keep if you don't land an Eason or a Watson. I think Luka and Austin are my 2 locks to be on next year's team. I think Marcus, I think Adu, just based on the contract. Kobe's probably there as well. Vando, because of his contract, that's 5. Jake, that's 6. Then you get into like is Maxi back maybe on a minimum? Kennard, they traded for. I think it would make sense to try and keep him as a bench shooter. Bronny, they got a team option on Bronny. Jackson with his relationship with Luka. Then DA's got the player option. LeBron has his future to decide. So yeah, I mean, I would say like maybe on the conservative side, 7, but I think it's probably a range of like 7 to 10 players. And I would hope it's on the shorter side. I would hope it's closer to like 7 or 8. I do think this group needs a bit of a reshaping, but I'm cool with most of the guys that it looks like they're going to be keeping. Mile High Indoors. I can't tell if this is a real question or not because you seem to be a Nuggets fan, but I will answer it. Thoughts on Bronny, Adu, and Buffkin leading the Lakers after Reeves and Luka. I do not think that is what is going to be happening. Where's the balance says, you can DoorDash and Grubhub, right? Yes. I've never done that to an arena and there's so much going on the road. And like, I think at this point I've been to every road arena enough to know my way around it, but it's not, I mean, it's not an ideal place, I would say, to Grubhub or DoorDash food to. On top of it, like, you got to figure out how you're going to get it into the arena, because some places there's not just like a clear place for the food to be dropped off or for you to meet the person. And sometimes if you exit, it's difficult to get back in. So it's a whole process that, I'm catching up on the chat here. So I'm trying to see. Mile High Doors says OKC shot horrible from 3 and still won the finals. Notes defense matters more. I mean, I would say you have to be elite at least at one of those things. But my point, I think my larger point, and maybe this is getting to like the heart of what I feel about this. I do think you need like that alpha number one scoring option where, like, I think, for example, and Orlando's not the best example because Orlando's not been defending as well. But when you look at a team like Orlando, for example, I think they have a championship level defense. I think like Orlando's got a bunch of good defenders, a bunch of studs on that side of the ball. I don't think Paolo or Franz is quite the number one level. I think they ideally would have a player above both of them, and one of those guys, maybe even depending on the night, depending on the matchup, whatever, is like the 2 or the 3. And so that's like, I guess that's kind of part of my point here. Like, I don't think the Detroit Pistons style team works anymore. I do think that you need a certain level of offensive like leader and best player to go. And that's where I think it's a pretty short list of guys that can actually do that. It's the Jokic's and the Sheas and the Lukas and the Ants. I don't really know how many guys beyond that. Like Cade, I think, can potentially be that guy, but we have to see what that looks like in the playoffs. And, I don't know if Brunson can be that guy. Steph and the Warriors are kind of out of it. I think Kawhi could be that guy, but the Clippers are out of it. You just like it's a short list of guys who can be like that guy in a playoff run. And Boston, we'll see what happens with Tatum and what Brown could do as potentially the leader through at least like this season. But I just think it's a short list of guys that can actually do that. And like, so I guess that's what I'm saying is like, I think you could be great defensively, but if you don't have that like stud offensive guy, and that's like partly why I lean more on the offensive side, is like, you could be like the best defense of all time, but if you're not scoring and shooting at a certain level and having a certain amount of offensive firepower, I just think you're going to lose. Like, I think with the way the NBA shifted, great offense will beat great defense, in my opinion. I saw a question about Luka requesting a trade. I don't see that happening. Lupe asks, answer this question, please. If LeBron leaves back to Cleveland and Luka leaves for Dallas in free agency, then what happens? Then Austin Reeves becomes even more popular. I don't know. I mean, the Lakers, if LeBron and Luka both leave, the Lakers are screwed. There's no other really way to put that. I mean, maybe they could attract Giannis as like if Giannis wants to come to LA and help bridge into like the next era. And now he doesn't have to worry about sharing the spotlight because there's the report out there that like he doesn't want to be the number 2 anywhere. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Civic Citizen says you need a player with verve. That's it. I had a lot of verve in high school. King Carter asked me to describe how I am as a dad. Am I a fun dad, helicopter dad, strict? How has fatherhood been as a young dad in this industry? I appreciate the non-basketball question and the personal question. I would like to say I'm a fun dad. I'm probably a little bit too much on the fun side. I'm not going to lie. That's kind of how my mom was with me. If you guys have been able to pick that up a little bit at all. I've definitely become stricter the last like couple years. So I've been working on that. I would say my wife is definitely the stricter one between us two. and not a helicopter parent, but I am like, I would say I'm pretty engaged and I try to be, especially because I don't have my son full time. Like any time I'm with him is, that's always the number one priority. Everything else gets pushed to the side. If I have a game that night, I will like watch the game and I'll go live and stuff. But other than that, it's like, everything kind of gets pushed to the side and that's my focus. So I would say I'm more on the fun dad side, and I'm, a little bit more laxed with certain things in terms of what he watches or playing Fortnite or whatever. But I've definitely been stricter with like the chores and the punishments for certain things. And then I wouldn't say I'm a helicopter parent, but I am very like monitoring him at all times. And even when I'm like giving him his freedom, I am keeping an eye on him to make sure he's not doing anything he's not supposed to. And then again, there's also just the time element of having somewhat limited time with him outside of the summer. Darth Dan, do you think they can keep Rui for around 12 to 13 million a year? I think Rui's going to get more than that. I think Rui, he's someone. So what is going to be interesting with this summer and just continue to be interesting in general is the middle class of the NBA is getting screwed right now. That's one of the unintended consequences, or maybe intended consequences. I wasn't in the meetings for the new, CBA on the players side, but we're starting to see it's shifting into, you want basically, you have your stars and like your high level starters that you pay 30 plus million. And then you want your like rookie scale guys and like bargain role players on somewhere like ideally under 15 million, under 12 million. And that like if your value is like between 15 to 30 million or so, you're kind of in a tough spot right now because no one really wants to be paying these like $20 million contracts. Those are probably like the most inefficient contracts right now. So I think Rui's in that range, and it just comes down to like I think the baseline for him and what I think he's probably going to be in the range of is like the non-taxpayer MLE of someone will talk themselves into, including potentially the Lakers, like 3 years, 45 million, 3 years, 50 million, something like that for Rui. Now, is someone going to use cap space on Rui? Is someone going to say, hey, Rui, we're putting you as a full-time starter, like big part of our future? I'm a little skeptical of that, but we'll see. All it takes is one team to do that. And maybe it's even the Lakers. But I think there was a point I wondered if he could get 20, 22 million. I think he's probably played his way out of that. And I think he's probably somewhere in that like 15 to 18 million range. Again, similar to the range he's been in. So, I mean, maybe the Lakers can get somewhat of a discount on it, and it's in that like $14-15 million range. But I think if it's 12-13, I think someone's going to swoop in and offer. Like, there are teams that could certainly use Rui for the non-taxpayer MLE. So I think that's probably his floor. And I would say the general range is somewhere in the mid to high teens is probably a realistic outcome for him. Julian's asking about Luka. I don't see Luka requesting or leaving. Like it's too early for that. I don't think we're close to that. Nah, I do not give spankings. I do not. I'm not that. I'm more on the fun side, guys. All right, gonna go a couple more minutes here. If you guys got any final questions, Julian asked, do you think we could acquire Kessler? My reading comprehension is not great right now. And either Eason and Watson this offseason by offering a big contract doing sign and trade, since we have 3 first-round picks and swaps available. I mean, if the Lakers are willing to put all of their picks on the table to acquire 2 of these 3 guys, I think it gets interesting. Like, I think if you put a certain amount of money in a first, like a certain amount of money to make Houston uncomfortable and a first potentially to sign and trade for Eason, I think Eason is the most gettable among these 3, because Eason is not even guaranteed like a full-time starting spot, I think, based on the way that Houston could go in the future, right? I think you're looking at, for example, whether it's Fred VanVleet coming back or Reed Shepherd taking a jump. Like, I think the longer term projection for Houston as a starting group is some point guard, Amen Thompson, KD, Jabari Smith, and Alperen Şengün. So Tari Eason is a bench player for Houston. Now, he's an elite bench player, and you don't want to just give him up for nothing. But if the Lakers are like, we want to pay Tari Eason $27 million a year, and we're going to give you a first round pick, if you're Houston, you have to really consider what his worth is and if you would do that. I think Kessler and Watson, you just have to go even higher than that. So you might even have to throw in 2 picks, and that's where you just got to think about the opportunity cost. I would say I think 2 is going to be tough, because if I'm Denver, and you also think about it from like Denver's perspective of Denver has like a relatively small window here with Jokic and Murray, like, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how long this Denver window is going to be open. So I'm not just giving up Peyton Watson to help the Lakers and be like, all right, well, sorry, Jokic. Like, I know he was the 4th best player on our team this year, but we're just going to let him walk to one of our biggest interconference rivals. And, we're going to cheap out on this. Like, I think Watson, now that I'm even talking about it, Watson might even be less gettable than Kessler. I just think it depends on like how the rest of the season goes. If he doesn't play well down the stretch, if he doesn't have a good playoffs, maybe he's all of a sudden more attainable. I think Kessler, Utah's pretty high on him. So I would say one of the 3 is gettable. I think it's like semi-reasonable gettable, but I think it's going to be really tough to get 2. Kane Carter asks, give this team a nickname: Russ, Bev, Brooks, Draymond, Stewart, with high school Jovan as the 6th man, Mike Malone as the coach. How'd this team go in an 82-game season? Who's fighting first? The funny thing is I think 2 of these guys would want to fight me, although it would be my high school version. And so they wouldn't yet want to fight me. They haven't met the media Jovan yet, who we did not see eye to eye. I'll let you piece together who the 2 players are. Well, of all these guys, I think it's got to be Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart's the guy that no one loves fighting as much as Isaiah Stewart. But Dylan Brooks, I think, is like the most likely to start the first altercation. Draymond's close. I mean, those 2 are close. But Stewart's the guy who's going to actually fight. And then I might be second on this list. This team, are we talking like prime everybody? Prime Russ. I think Brooks is in his prime right now. Prime Draymond, prime Stewart, prime Pat Bev. And then you got me. I'm trying to think of like this team in comparison with Russ's 2017 Thunder team. This is better than that. I mean, I think it depends what the bench looks like, right? Like if they're, I mean, I know you have me on the bench, but what does the rest of the bench look like? Just that starting group. I mean, that could be a high, if we're talking prime Russ and what he did with that OKC group, like that could be a high 40s to low 50s one team, I guess. Like I probably would put their range as like 48. Also depends on the season, right? Are we talking like 10 years ago? We're talking now. Now they might be more of like a high 40s team, but yeah. This is just mean, man. Why are you saying? Why are we going here? How much do you? Is it there said? How much do you think Gabe Vincent would score if he was in this game? 8 points. Mile high. Who's better, Bronny or Gabe Vincent? I think Gabe's better, but I had to think about it. I did have a half second there. In all seriousness, like, I know people love to pile on Gabe, but but Tough says 8 points, too much. Well, the part you are not, he went 3 for 12 in the game. Okay. So he hit 2 threes and he made a pull-up jumper, but he missed the other 9 and he had a couple air balls. Ken Carter here. Hey, Jovan, what's one thing you miss about being a 90s, 2000s kid? What was special that kids these days won't get? I think we're the last generation. If you grew up as a kid in that era, so I'm a 92 baby. So I grew up, most most of the 90s and then into the 2000s as, kind of getting into my teenage years. I think we were the final generation that experienced life before it was fully digital and online. Like, I think about like the milestones in my life of when I got my first phone, when I got my first computer, when I got my first TV, and like just sort of life before and after those moments. And there was as crazy as it sounds for some people under like 30, there was a time when, you would just go out and play with no plans. And, I was more at the tail end of that. So it started to be, I would call my friend's house or whatever. It'd have to talk to their parents to get a hold of them. And, but it, everything, I think shifted a lot in like middle school. That's when like AIM was what it was, and MySpace and all those things. But I would just say like that we feel very technologically dependent right now, and there's some benefits. Like I'm in my home office streaming to all of you right now, all over not only California and the US, but all over the world. And you guys are hearing this, and we got this technology where we can have this relationship, but there's also a lot of downsides to it, right? So I would just say I miss those days of like, the Blockbuster Fridays and just sort of the simplicity of like the late 90s, early 2000s, but also the simplicity of being a kid, right? You can't replicate that. Two Sizzle, we threw rocks. Yeah, man, Hod says a strong immunity. Like, yeah, the times were simpler, man. We did whatever we wanted. The movie Mid-90s, that's one of my, I really like that movie, and I think it's a good encapsulation of that, coming of age experience. King Carter, Jovan, what was the first Drake song you heard that made you a fan? Best I ever had. Like quick aside with that, high school Jovan, play basketball, and my first car was a white minivan, Toyota Sienna. Shout out 2002 white Toyota Sienna. But I would I would just be listening to Power 106 and driving with the windows down, like blaring rap music everywhere I was going. And I had a buzzed head, and I would be wearing different hats. I had not a baseball fan, but I had all the baseball hats, and I was a big hat guy in high school. And so listening to Power 106, cruising around Old Agora, and I hear this song, and I'm like, damn, that's a dope duo. Like you got the singer who's singing the chorus, you got the guy who's rapping. Like that was a cool song. I like that song. And then they said by Drake, and I was like, who's Drake? Like, what's this? Who's this Drake guy? Is this like a band? Is this what is this? Or like, I thought it was a duo. And I looked it up. I'm like, no, it's the same dude. He sings and raps, and he does his choruses, and he sounds like a pop star with his choruses, and then he also sounds like a rapper in his verses. And from that moment on, I listened to So Far Gone, his big, it wasn't his first mixtape, but his sort of first like mainstream mixtape. And from that point on, I was an OVO stan. Telly Khalifa says, Buzz Jovan sounds dangerous. I'm picturing Tyler Hero. Yes. I think Tyler Hero's, I was similar to Tyler Hero. I had baggy. I used to wear like double XL everything. It was, I was different. I was moving different in high school. Two Sizzle says, I'm invited to the barbecue. I've actually been to a couple barbecues, and I had some fun. I got, kind of had to be tested a little bit in the beginning to pass the vibe check. But I've been to a couple barbecues. Pablo asked, you never watched Degrassi? I did not watch Degrassi. So I did not know the backstory with Drake and Jimmy and all that. Outer Space Mitch played basketball against Tyler Hero growing up in Wisconsin, and he dunked on me 3 times in one half in a summer ball game in 9th grade. Damn. So Tyler Hero was pretty good young, because some guys like pop later in high school, right? But he was obviously a 5-star recruit who went to Kentucky. But that's an awesome story. Rob says, we'll invite you to the carne asada. I appreciate that. Joel asked, what other road cities am I traveling to this year? Also, which college arenas have you been to? I have only been to USC, Galen Center and Pauley Pavilion. I'm pretty sure those are the only 2. Didn't travel much in college in terms of going to the different games. Other road cities, it's still TBD. I'm considering, so they got the upcoming stretch they have at Phoenix, at Golden State at the end of the month. I'm considering maybe the Golden State one. They have at Denver, which I'm considering. They have a couple at Houston into at Miami. I really want to go to Miami because I love Miami. That's one of my favorite road cities, but looking at that trip as well, would not go on the rest of it. Then to close the year, they have at OKC and at Golden State. So my goal would be to at least go to 2 more road games, if not 3. But I'm also I'm going to be going to the entire playoffs, so I'm also trying to figure out the budget and what's realistic, and because theoretically they'll have at least 3 road playoff games in the playoffs, but that could obviously extend 2nd round, 3rd round, whatever. Could be a long playoff trip, or a lot of playoff travel. So trying to balance it out, but my goal I think is to go to. I've been to 3 non-LA road games this season, so my goal would be to probably. I'd wanted to go to more closer to 10 this year, but might end up being a little bit lower until the playoffs. What face did I just make? Chris, favorite hoop shoe. I actually have a weird one for this because I think I might be the only person in the world who actually likes this shoe. But I think it's the nostalgia in me and when I got into basketball, because I got into it during the first year of the Lakers three-peat. But now it's called, it was the Kobe one at the time, but now it's the Adidas Crazy one. It's actually an Adidas shoe. It's not a Kobe Nike shoe. But I love that space boot. It is ugly, but it is my ugly. And there's something about it that I just, the 3 stripes on the side, they brought it back a couple times. They brought it back, I think in 2014, and Harrison Barnes and some other Adidas players were wearing it. Then they brought it back a couple years ago again. They even brought back the Crazy 2, which is the Kobe 2, which was the even uglier one. That was actually my first basketball shoe. I would. Okay. BC says that's his favorite too. Awesome. I would say that one from the actual Kobe line with Nike. I believe the Kobe 4 is my favorite. That was one that I wore a lot in high school. I have I like the T-Mac 2s. I have a lot of the nostalgia for the shoes that were popular when I was coming up in I would say the 2000 to 2002 range specifically. So the Adidas Pro model was the high school shoe that everybody had. But you had the T-Mac 2s, you had the Iversons. I think it was the Iverson 4s, if I'm not mistaken, around then. And so I kind of missed the Jordan window in that regard. Now I do have 30 pairs of Jordans, so I have now made up for that. I have more Jordans than anything else, but not for hooping. For Jordans, it's more so just the casual walking around. I've never actually hooped in a Jordan. Fun fact, I actually tore my Achilles in the Adidas crazy one. So my favorite shoe probably led to me having a year-long rehab. Where's the Balance 3? Do you have the Iversons? I do not, but I had Iversons. They also made Iverson was ahead of his time for a lot of reasons, but he also made I don't know if you guys remember, like a lifestyle, like slip-on version of his shoe. So I also had that, and like I would casually wear that when I was like 4th, 5th grade. Just version of his shoe without laces, and it was just like a more like casual walk around shoe. So yeah, but I was a big Iverson guy. And ones, I never had and ones. I always wanted and ones. I always wanted the Tai Chi, the Vince Carter 2000 dunk contest one. Harry Chinani, thank you for the super chat here. Just half a game ahead of the play-in. Can't afford to rest players anymore. Every game counts. You want to rest the big three as much as possible going into the playoffs, but our weak roster doesn't allow that. Not great. Yeah, we didn't really get into this. I understand some fans are upset and totally understand that. I think with my read would be, so like Austin's still in the minutes restriction and calf injuries. It's not just the Lakers, it's like around the league. People are being very cautious with calf injuries, and that's been like the most popular injury of the past 12 months. So that one I understand to a degree. I think ideally Austin's off this minutes restriction post All-Star break. If this lingers past the All-Star break, I think they are dragging it out a bit too long, assuming there's no setback. But it seems like he's going to be on a minutes restriction through the All-Star break, and then after that he'll be back to normal. LeBron, I give a pass on the age side of just I like LeBron was not going to be the difference in the Lakers winning this game or not tonight, and it just for him there's an age component. With Luka, I think if Luka could have played, he would have, and I think that would have shifted everything. LeBron probably plays, maybe Austin. They kind of pushed through that. So like I think Luka's health was a swing factor here. Of again, there's no guarantee he even plays on Thursday, but there's a chance he plays Thursday. DA, I think they just held out because of who was already out. And then Marcus, I think actually hurt his ankle, and we'll see if he plays Thursday. So I think there's justifications for each of them. Now, if Luka played, I think DA and LeBron play, and then Marcus and Austin, again, it just depends how they want to handle the Austin situation. It depends how actually hurt Marcus is. But if you had Luka, LeBron, and DA, I think it's certainly a much more competitive game, and the Lakers at least have a shot to win it. But also, like, I think a big part of this was just second night of a back-to-back. I think if this was a Wednesday game instead of a Tuesday game, I don't think there's any chance that like Luka and Marcus might have just been out due to like actually not being healthy, but Austin, LeBron, and DA, I think were specifically related to Luka being out and it being second night of a back-to-back. But I hear you. I think like, I guess they have one more game left, and then it's got to be recalibrating everything. And like down the stretch, you got to go on a run here. You got to extend this 8-4 run that they just had, 8-3 run, we'll say, in like the most optimistic sense. You got to stretch that run into the second half of the season, because you do not want to be a play-in team, and you do not want to be one bad game away from playing OKC in round one. Like that's not the situation you want to be in. Kurt Affair asks if I have spoken to Luka in Serbian. I'm not like fluent in Serbian, but we have spoken in Serbian. Outer Space Mitch says, benefits of blowouts is getting to bullshit with Buha for a bit. Yes, we've officially entered the bullshit with Buha segment of the show. The Lakers asked, did I talk about Kennard? I did talk about Kennard in the notable performer section. I thought he had a good game. I thought offensively we saw some of his bag in terms of the playmaking. He had I'm pulling it up here, but I think 14 points and 5 assists, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 14 points, 5 assists. I think defensively, the Lakers this was a point I made when they traded for him, that I don't love him in like a fully switching scheme. And we saw several times he switched on to Wemby. We saw several times last night he switched on to Chet and J-Dub. And I just don't think the Lakers are good enough at protecting their weakest defenders on the floor. I mean, you also saw the same thing with Austin down the stretch last night. Like the Lakers got to figure that out, because that I think is a low-hanging fruit with their defense that they just continue to not figure out. But I'm going to wrap here. Appreciate you guys. Said I was going to go an hour. What, an hour 30? That is what we do on Buha's block. I will be back Thursday night. There's a chance I will. Yeah, I'll say Thursday night. I will also be back on Friday for Lakers Collective. So those are my next two shows for sure. I'll be on Spectrum tomorrow. So if you guys are in the LA area or have Spectrum Sportsnet at home, you can check me out 7 p.m. on Spectrum Sportsnet. And then reminder that I will be doing a meetup, first meetup of the season on the 1-year anniversary of the first meetup last year for All-Star Game. It'll be February 15th, looking like it's going to be downtown. So I think the next step is going to be whittling it down to which place we're going to go in downtown. I'll present a few options, have people vote on that, and then we'll finalize the meetup location. But shout out to the chat, shout out to everybody, shout out to the late night gang. And this one, let's just flush it away. Forget this one. Lakers were without their entire starting lineup, so just not much to take away from this game. But the young guys got some reps, and I think that is a minor silver lining in all of this. But appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you all Thursday, maybe sooner, who knows? But at least on Thursday. Appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your evening.